revolution. It's January 9th, 2026. And last night, the revolution of the Iranian people, if you want to call that already, uh, experienced exactly what I told you probably would happen. The Iranian government sent out the IRGC in large numbers to suppress the protesters. And they did it by first suppressing telecoms in various locations, which is exactly what I told you would happen yesterday and the day before. I told you in my live streams that is probably what we would see, is various localities seeing their telecoms suppressed, and then the IRGC would do their damage, and that's exactly what happened. They slaughtered apparently a lot of people. The numbers are not yet fully in, but the reports are not good from the people that managed to get to places where there are still telecoms, either by Starlink or other means, and they managed to message people outside of Iran to confirm that they saw a lot of people killed across a lot of different places. And of course, the operations happened at night since the protests were at night, making the satellite imagery obviously just a tiny bit more challenging to observe, but obviously it wouldn't stop the satellites from seeing what's happening, since they do have all kinds of optical capabilities. But still, we know that the IRGC has done now what I've been telling you they probably would do once the patience of the Iranian government started to wear a little thin, and basically run the playbook they've done for the past 47 years whenever there's any kind of opposition to the Iranian dictatorship led by the Ayatollah and the IRGC. Well, the Ayatollah is, of course, a figurehead puppet of the Supreme Council, who actually handed over the power to the IRGC to run the country back in June of 2025 during the 12-day war with Israel. And he has yet to take that power back, because basically he knows that they are really the force that runs this country at this point. Since, yes, sure, he can give commands to them and all, but since he's an old man who often goes into hiding whenever there's any kind of conflict or uprising attempt or war, he basically isn't going to run any war from inside of a bunker that has no telecoms in it. So he's basically running the playbook, and they're running the playbook exactly as I told you was likely to happen. I'm glad to see that media, people on YouTube like Meyer Tusi and Goldie Gamari and Armin from Atheist Republic, have all been covering this, and increasingly, unfortunately, they've been coming around to what I've been saying the whole time, which is, if you want to overthrow this really awful dictatorship, people need to come out in huge numbers, like 3 to 5 million. And I know there have been reports on some channels saying that there have been a few million people coming out. We've not seen any actual confirmation of those numbers yet. I wish that it were true, but we still need to see those 3 to 5 million people actually come out and actually overrun all of the government institutions and the military installations, headquarters, arsenals, bases, etc., that matter. We just haven't seen that yet. It needs to be like a massive stampede all at once, and that's the only way to overrun these forces. Once that happens, then yes, the people power may in fact overrun and overthrow the dictatorship currently oppressing Iran, which I really hope happens. But the longer that this goes on, and we're expecting another day of nighttime protests in Iran today. It is Friday in Iran, which means they are observing the Friday, holiday, if you will, the Friday weekend. But we may see some attempts at making the challenge greater to the government, but it's not going to be easy if the RGC keeps coming out and doing what they did last night, reportedly. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, and it's not that I'm negative on this whole thing. It's just I'm very realistically skeptical because of the past history that we've seen with the Iranian government and how they handle protests. Yes, they can let them linger for a while. They can let them become quite large even. And then when they get tired of letting people air their grievances, they just do the one thing that they always do. Right? They demonstrate exactly why they are an oppressive dictatorship. Meanwhile, you've had today in the last hour, Ayatollah Khamenei coming out and address the people of Iran, making multiple claims against Donald Trump and the United States, Iranian affairs, and that the U.S. has the death of 1,000 Iranians or more on their hand, which is frankly laughable, considering that on an average day, right, in 2025 alone, we've seen anywhere from 30 to 50 people executed by the state, and there's no sign that that stopped until now. Right? They hang them, they shoot them, they beat them to death, whatever they do. They execute more than anywhere from 30 to 50 people per day, every single day. So to say that the U.S. is responsible for 1,000 deaths of Iranians is like saying, oh, you killed as many Iranians as the government has killed in about a month or less, which is disgusting. Also preposterous, because the United States is certainly not responsible for killing more than 1,000 Iranians underneath Donald Trump. In fact, under Donald Trump, literally 0 civilians were killed, right? Every single bomb, all the 12 bombs that were dropped last year on the nuclear targets by the United States, by the big, beautiful B-2 bombers that flew over the targets, literally were precision hits that literally blew up the nuclear facilities that Iran had that were the most concerning, which Israel's bombs could not penetrate into that deep of a level. And that's why they use those very deep bunker bombs that the U.S. has. And of course, we know that as a result, Iran's government is building even deeper installations, which means that the U.S. is going to have to build even bigger bombs if the government stays in power until then, in order to reach the depths that Iran apparently intends to dig down to. In some cases, they may already have done that, so that if there is a next round of such kind of attacks, they could, destroy those facilities. Hopefully, the people will get rid of this government long before that, and Iran will not only stop trying to enrich uranium, but will actually voluntarily work with the United States and Israel and the EU and the UN and the IAEA to dismantle their nuclear program. Of course, I have no faith in the UN and very little in the IAEA, frankly, or even Europe, frankly, the EU anyway. But Israel and the US certainly would be helpful in dismantling the nuclear program of Iran, and obviously would help Iran to recover economically and rejoin the community of nations, which it's so long, for so long it has been cut off from as a result of being led by this terrorist sponsoring dictatorship, right? Which uses terrorism itself against its own people, and which obviously sponsors so many proxies around the world, and continues to operate so many illegal operations around the world, criminal operations, etc. So, unfortunately, we have seen precisely what I told you was going to happen. Hello there, I see you in the chat. Thank you for your messages. By the way, guys, if you're watching this, please like this video if you find it useful, and obviously subscribe to the channel. That'd be great. Let me get the word out to more people. I may not be Iranian, but I certainly understand what is happening in Iranian politics, as you can see by my very accurate, unfortunately very accurate predictions and prognostications, if you want to call it that. I wish that it were otherwise. I wish that we had seen this necessary stampede long ago, but we have not yet seen it. And that's partly because, frankly, the people of Iran have been beaten into submission for so long. And they are generally a peaceful people. And they don't want to have to put up a fight. And they know that the cost is not easy and not light, and it's heavy. And, you know, people go out in the streets to protest. They obviously don't want to die. They want a peaceful change, but it's not going to happen peacefully. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video, hopefully with some better news. I'll be following what's happening tonight, obviously in Iran. And I pray and hope and pray that things will go in the right direction. All right, that's it for now, folks. Take care. Peace.